Hello everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back. Here to do a bit of a different video, something that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and I have a little bit of spare time today. I have the house to myself for the first time in forever. It's school holidays. I've taken the first week of school holidays off. It's like our winter holidays. I've taken the first week off work. But today there was a holiday program at the school that my son really wanted to do. It's a Lego day. So he's a holiday program and my husband's at work, so nobody's here. So I wanted to do a video. Look, and the dog, of course, as soon as I start filming, the dog starts barking. So I wanted to do a video, and I'm sort of tentatively calling it how, oh my goodness, one moment. Tentatively calling it how I melt. So I know there's a few videos out there, like, you know, Wax 101 videos and things like that. And I suppose this is somewhat related to that, but I really wanted to focus just on talking about the things that I do and my routine and the way that I do things. The main reason I want to do this, to be honest, is I feel like I'm quite bad when I do my weekly videos and stuff. I feel like I'm really bad at, like, you know, some people are very good at sort of saying, this is my, you know, this is the type of warmer I use, this is the space I used it in, sometimes talking about how long they cured it for, like all of that kind of detail, which is important stuff, I think, when you're talking about the performance of wax. I'm really bad at covering those things. And I think I'm really bad at it because a lot of the time it's really consistent stuff. So what I thought I might do is just film a video talking about some of that stuff. And then that way I won't feel as bad when I forget to talk about it in my videos, because at least I'll have sort of talked about it here. And if you watch this, then you'll have, you know, a better sense of when I say my bedroom, you know, what kind of warm, like that kind of, just that kind of thing. And, you know, it might be informative, it might not be. It's just a general kind of chat. I know a lot of people do kind of chop and chats. I probably should, but I really hate chopping wax. And that's one of the things I was going to talk about in this video, is how I deal with cutting wax. But yeah, I feel like I would struggle to talk about things and do things with my hands as well. So yeah, no chop and chat, just me. I might pull props out as I go. Yeah, anyway. So first topic. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and I think it's really important context for this video and for pretty much any wax video you'll ever watch, is that everything that we talk about is completely subjective. You know, sometimes I see commentary about, you know, how useful or not YouTube videos are, and I personally find watching other people's videos quite useful, but you know, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and not just about the fragrances. So the fragrances are obviously subjective. You know, what smells good to me will not smell good to somebody else. And even beyond that, I think, you know, I've discovered that our noses definitely, you know, I'm not going to like pretend to know exactly how everything works, but obviously you smell things and your brain plays a role in how that gets interpreted. And sometimes your nose can pick things up the wrong way and things smell, you know, just like sometimes things taste differently for some people, like coriander or cilantro. Tastes really good to some people and it tastes like soap to some people. I think with certain scents it's a very similar thing. You know, strawberries, for me, for example, some strawberries smell good. None of them smell like real strawberries. Some strawberries smell really good. Some strawberries smell like straight up chemicals, like just really, or like green and moldy. And I know that's not what those oils are meant to smell like, because other people love them. And I know that the scent that I'm smelling could not possibly be enjoyed by anybody. So it has to smell differently to other people. And I think that does, you know, I think that can influence how we all sort of perceive and receive scents. So when I hear somebody talking about strawberry, you know, and how it's a fantastic strawberry, you know, I'm always keen to try, but, you know, I've always got to be aware of my own issues with strawberry. And I know some people have issues with peach. I personally don't have issues with peach. Peach almost always smells really good to me, but for some people it smells like cat pee. That doesn't mean if you know, if you hear someone talking about peach smelling like cat pee, if you haven't tried peach, that doesn't mean that it will smell like that for you. It doesn't mean that that scent definitely smells like cat pee. It just means that that's how it smells to that person. So it's absolute. So scent is subjective, but throw is as well. And it's, it's subject to so many different factors. The things that can influence the throw of something. So obviously the wax itself. I do think sometimes there's wax that just, or vendors, or that genuinely just don't perform very well. But the types of warmers that you use. So you can have tea lights, hot plates, bulbs, different temperatures, all different size dishes. I think, that sort of stuff plays a role. So obviously your warmers play a massive role. But then the placement in your house, not only in what sort of room, but where in the room you put it, because airflow really seems to, play a big role too. So having a smaller closed-in room, you'll probably get better performance than in a bigger open plan space. But like for me, sometimes being near windows or not can play a role, even if the windows are closed. Like in my house, like winter at the moment, even though the windows are closed, they are still an area where, it's probably not the best insulated of houses. That you do get more cold air when you are near the windows. And so I find that sometimes influences how my wax performs. I have found, I actually haven't heard many people talk about this, but I have found that cold air, because heat rises and your wax vapor is warm, I find that when it's cold, the scent of my wax tends to gravitate up. So what I will find is when I'm standing up or walking around the room, I can smell it because it's up there. But when I'm sitting down, sometimes I can't smell it. And I find some rooms seem to get influenced by that more than others. So this office that I'm in right now, that does happen sometimes. So I don't want to show it because it's my area here, but I haven't tidied my desk in a while, so it's kind of messy. But just here, I have my computer desk and I sit like literally where this camera is. And the warmer is a meter away from me. So you would think that would be like prime scent positioning. And most of the time it is, but sometimes I get better throw over that side of the room than I can smell the scent more over there than I can like right at the warmer. And that to me just seems to be like an airflow draft. What I think happens is the scent kind of, because it does seem to happen more when it's cold, the scent actually kind of rises above me and floats over to the other side of the room. So that is something, that a dynamic that can be in play, and it can take a while to identify that. I think in a space, it took me a while to figure out that was happening in here. Sometimes I thought, that scent is just not throwing in my office, but then I'd realized that it was I was smelling it quite well over that side of my office, so which is the opposite side from the warmer. So that kind of thing definitely can influence how anyone, I think, perceives or experiences the throw of their wax. Other things that subjective around throws, obviously, the number of warmers that you have. So I tend to go one warmer in my smaller rooms, two in my kitchen and more elsewhere. That can play a role. So I think many of us have different numbers of warmers. Some people have a lot more warmers than me. Some people have less. And our own noses and sensitivity as well. Like it's just, I have a feeling that some people would come into my house and get absolutely bowled away by how strong the scents are. Whereas to me, it's just kind of normal level. But then other people, there might be other waxies out there who would think that the throw in my house is not that strong and not, they want it stronger. So everyone has preferences about that. Everything. So I just wanted to say that, when I talk about throw, when I talk about scents, scents that I like, oils that smell good, smell bad to me, it's 100% subjective. I'm not saying to anyone that you should or shouldn't go out and purchase based on my opinion about those things. It is just an opinion and it is just my experience. Same as for anyone talking about wax on YouTube, it is just their opinion and their experience. It doesn't mean that you will have the same opinions or experiences. And I do think that it does make it a little bit more challenging when you're going out and, making your own purchases, because, you don't necessarily, you're potentially selling yourself short if you only go by what certain YouTubers say about things, whether that be me or anyone, because my experiences may be very different to what you experience. So, and that was something I had to sort of learn, is I usually, if there's something that sounds interesting to me, I have to try. The only way I'm going to know if I like it is if I try it myself, basically. I do find now there are certain YouTubers, after watching a lot, that we have similar experiences. So there's certain people who, you know, the same brands that throw well for me seem to perform well in their houses and their scenarios. So, you know, I tend, but even then sometimes it, you know, we can still have different experiences with things. And then sometimes, you know, I'll find certain people have like similar issues or similar loves to me, and that's the sort of thing. Then you can kind of start gravitating towards those people, and you know, I guess take their advice a little bit more on the wax. But yeah, it's definitely yeah, I just wanted to say that because I don't want anyone thinking that because I don't like a vendor or have had issues with a particular vendor that means that I'm saying that you shouldn't buy from that vendor. In terms of my layout, so I've talked about it briefly before. My house, so I have 8 warmers in my house. I have it's quite a long, skinny house this way. So what I have at the front door, I should just do it like, maybe I should, no, anyway. So the front door opens into the lounge room. So there's kind of like an entryway and lounge, and it's all together in one. It's not a huge room. Like none of the rooms in my house are ginormous. But the lounge room I do find tends to, I need 3 warmers in there basically. When we moved here, I started with 2 wasn't enough, so I popped the 3rd in, because I just feel it's got a lot of exit points. So there's the front door, there's windows on both sides, because there's a window to the front yard and there's a window that faces out to the backyard. And again, I do feel like the kind of, even when they're closed, I do feel like there's a little bit of airflow that comes from them that messes around with my throw a little bit, and even probably some scent leakage out. So the windows I do think would play a role with that. And then there's 2 sort of exit points out. So over to, past the front door, there's a hall. You can go down a hallway, and there's a bathroom sort of just off to the side. And then on this side, there's a big kind of open, it sort of opens in a U shape into my kitchen and dining area. So I do think that my lounge room is probably the hardest area to keep scented. I also find that, and I think it's because of the windows, it's just a general airflow in the house. Sometimes the scent gets caught, it sort of all flows and gets caught in the bathroom. So the bathroom is kind of like, the lounge room is long, and then there's a hallway, and then there's a bathroom there. And sometimes I'll be in the lounge room, I'm like, I can't really smell anything. And then I go into the lounge room, I'm like, whoop, there it is. Like my whole bathroom will just be full of whatever I was melting in the lounge room. So it doesn't always happen, and I don't necessarily need to have open doors or windows. In fact, I usually don't have open doors or windows when that happens. So I still haven't 100% nailed why certain scents do that, because it doesn't happen all the time. I mean, I do tend to always be able to smell things in my bathroom from the lounge room, but it's not like it's always all of the scent kind of travels in there, if that makes sense, but it happens sometimes. Then, so you go around this U shape, and then I've got a kind of open dining and kitchen area. Again, it's not a massive area, but it's big enough, and it's got windows, it's got the back door, so the whole kind of side of it is windows and glass doors. There's the open area that leads into the lounge room, and then there's a door to the hallway. So again, a few different leakage points in there. I have 2 warmers. I could probably go 3 if I'm being honest, but the 2 warmers are kind of towards the middle of the room as well. Part of my problem in that room is I don't have many power points where I want. So, and I don't want to stack up the kitchen bench with, you know, warmer after warmer. So 2 is enough, but sometimes I do find, again, in that room, I do think the scent really rises. In my kitchen, more than just about anywhere else, is where, you know, if I'm sitting at the dining table, I often can't smell what I'm melting. But if I'm moving around in there, I absolutely can. So I think maybe because of the maybe draft from the back door or something, possibly pushes the scent up. So that's a bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. I mean, if I melt a strong scent in there, it does, you know, I do find it does pretty well, but I just sometimes I have issues with, yeah, the scent being there, but just not when I'm sitting at the dining table, which is generally what I'm doing when I'm in that room. What else do I want to say about that room? Nothing. So then sort of throughout the rest of the house, so I have the 2 bedrooms, so my bedroom, the master room down the front, and my son's bedroom. Just a warmer each in those. They do okay. I mean, they're a kind of closed room. The warmers I've got in there are my oldest warmers, and I'll talk about my warmers in a second, but I do think my bedroom warmers are probably my poorest performing ones, so I'll come back to that. And then the last room I have a warmer in is this room, my office, and so I've just got the one. This is another bedroom. It's just I've turned it into my office, and yeah, it does the job. The types of warmers that I have, so I have mostly Glades or Kmart hot plates. So when I say Kmart, that's Kmart Australia. So, you know, we do still have Kmart in Australia. It's quite a popular department store. It's not the same Kmart that was open in the US. And the Kmart warmers, actually I can't show all of my warmers because they're warm, but I can show the Kmart one. Okay, so I managed to get some spare ones last year or the year before. I think it was the year before. They had like a run out. I think they were like $30, but 30 Australian dollars. But I managed to get these like in the Christmas sales for $9. So I stocked up on 3 spares, and I've used 1 spare, so I still have 2. The box is very dusty because they've been sitting out there for a while. So that's what it looks like. So it lights up, just subtle lighting, and then you can kind of see the dish there. So these warmers are good. They are quite warm. So it says on the back here, max 28 watts. So that sounds quite high, because I think most hot plate warmers that people like are sort of, 20 to 24 watts. So 28 does sound high. It says max 28 watts, and I just feel like it maybe doesn't quite get to 28 watts. I feel like it's probably more like a 24, 25 watt product, just because they do melt. I do find that those warmers melt faster than, say, my Glades. So they are definitely hotter than my Glades. My Glades are 20 watt. They are the old school Glade. So yeah, I've got the 20 watt Glades, and these ones, the Kmart one is definitely hotter than that, but 28 watt just sounds really ridiculous. It doesn't seem to, I don't find that it melts my wax down that fast, or burns up the scent that quickly, if that makes sense. So, so yeah, I've got mostly, so in my lounge room, I have 1 of those Kmart ones and 2 Glades. In my kitchen, I have 1 Kmart one and 1 Glade. In this office, I have 1 Glade. And then in the bedrooms, I have 2 Airwicks. So Airwick, I think it's a brand that's mostly been sold in Australia and I think in the UK, and probably New Zealand. They were just really basic kind of plastic black ones. They were the very first warmers I got, because when I first got into wax, they were selling them in the supermarkets. I don't think they are there anymore. They are also 20 watt, I believe. And they've been little guns. Like, they've just thrown and thrown, you know. I have had them for a while, and I do think that their performance is diminishing, particularly the one in my bedroom. They take a long time to melt down now, like much longer than they used to. But I find once they finally do melt down, they throw really well. So I've got no real issues with the performance once they are up and running. I just find my bedroom warmers take a long time to melt. That doesn't bother me so much because I'm never hanging out in my bedrooms when I put wax on. Like, what I do with my bedroom warmers is I melt in the mornings. I tend to either melt things I'm experimenting with, or samples that I'm not sure about, or things that I want to use up, because I might visit the rooms briefly, but I don't spend much time in there. And in the evening, I go to bed, but the wax has usually been melting for a few hours by the time I get there. So I don't mind that they are a bit slower in there. So I guess I feel like I don't talk about my warmers much in my videos because they're all kind of the same. Like, you know, some people have some bulbs and some hot plates and tea lights and they'll mix things up. I'm really boring. I just keep my warmers the same. I don't do tea lights. I will not do an open flame in my house. My anxiety would just go through the absolute roof if I was using tea lights. I can't even do candles. I freak out with candles. So, and bulb warmers, I don't know. I mean, I could try one day, and maybe if I sort of start running out of warmers, then maybe I might try a bulb warmer. But I've been happy with the performance of my hot plates. The vast majority of what I use throws. So yeah, I have no real motivation to sort of experiment with other types of warmers. So these ones seem to be a really good happy medium in that they're not like, you know, so hot that they melt the wax down, you know, they use up all the fragrance really quickly, but they're warm enough that they do throw. So yeah, I'm really happy with my warmer situation at the moment. But yeah, I feel redundant sort of saying on a Glade hot plate warmer, because all of my warmers are pretty much performing about the same. The only difference I've really noticed between them is the amount of time that it takes to melt down the wax. So that's my warmers. The only other thing I'll say about my house and where I melt, so I sort of talked about the rooms that I do melt in. You'll notice I don't ever talk about melting in my bathrooms or my laundry, and I just don't. I did once for a little while. I had a little plug-in wall warmer that I used in the bathroom for a bit at my old house. But here, I don't know. So the laundry, I never go in. I barely go in, like, chucking loads on. I don't, it's a really small room off to the side. I don't use it, so don't really bother. The bathrooms, so like I said, the main bathroom tends to just fill up with scent from the lounge room. So I feel like it's kind of pointless melting in there because there'd just be a conflict. I have contemplated, and I might still start scenting the ensuite. So the ensuite to my bedroom, that room it picks up a little bit of scent from the bedroom, but not a huge amount. And it does sometimes get a bit, it's got the toilet in there as well as the shower. It does sometimes get a little bit stinky. So I am contemplating, but I don't want to put bench space is at an absolute premium, and to be honest, power points is an absolute premium in that room as well. So I may do like a little plug-in. I've even thought about doing like the Bath and Body Works wallflowers or something in there, although again, I'd probably need to use a power board, and I don't think I want to put one of those on a power board. You know what I mean? It's just those sorts of things. I start thinking about it and then I'm like, oh, it's too hard, and then I never put anything in there. So maybe I'll do like a reed diffuser or something so it doesn't have to use any of the power in there. So yeah, that's why I sort of don't talk about the bathrooms or anything that much, because I just don't melt in them. The other room I don't melt in much is, we've got another sort of it's a bedroom, but we use it as like a playroom, rumpus room type thing. I do have a warmer in there, but it's not a very good one. It's like a 12-watt hot plate, and yeah, I've tried melting a couple of times in there, and I'm not in there very often. Occasionally I go in there with my son, but it's mostly his room to muck around in. So that's my house layout and what rooms I melt in and stuff like that. I do have a list of things I wanted to touch on. So I've talked about my warmers. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about my changing wax routine. So all of my hot plate warmers have detachable dishes. I don't think I could function any other way. Because what I do, I change wax twice a day. So this is most days. I change my wax in the morning. So often I'll do it just after I drop my son at school, unless obviously he's not going to school, then I don't. I'll do it first thing in the morning. And then I change again sometime between 3 and 5 is usually what I aim for. So my morning melt, I put my morning melts on obviously first thing, and then afternoon melts between sort of 3 and 5. If I'm at work, I usually don't change wax at all. I just don't bother. So at the moment, when I say at work, I mean actually going to the office. I only go to the office 1 or 2 days a week at the moment. So most days I am here. How I do change my wax is I go around and I collect. So I'll do them 2 at a time. I'll grab the warm 2 dishes. I'll bring them up here. So again, it's quite messy, so I'm not going to show. But this bench, I've got a wooden chopping board here, like a big. It's not a chopping board actually, it's a serving board. So I put the wax dishes. I hot dump the wax out. So I've got a container. I will show you my container, even though it's quite messy. So it's got wax all over it. But I basically use that. I tip the wax in there. Paper towel, quick wipe out with paper towel. And I leave the dishes there, and I go around the house. I collect all the dishes up at one go. So I don't take the wax to the rooms. I don't do that in stages. I do all my warmers at once. I bring all the dishes up here, so I'll have 8 trays sitting here. And then I will fill it up with wax, basically. So because I've got the serving board, I've got a wax cutter, I've got everything I need. I prep the wax up and put it in the warmers, and then take all the dishes back. So a few reasons why I do that. So hot dumping for one, that's just my preferred way to change. I have tried the freezer method. I have tried various different methods, silicone linings, all of those kinds of things. For me, dumping the wax into a container is just the quickest and easiest method for me. Just in terms of not leaving like residue behind. Like I found even when I was doing the freezer method, I was still getting like wax residue kind of left behind, and it was really hard to clean off. Whereas I find if I hot dump and I tip it out, then a paper towel and it's all gone really quickly and really easily. So that's the way that I like to change my wax. My wax changing, it's definitely a bit of like a kind of calming sort of centering routine for me, particularly the afternoon routine. Like it's a bit of a sign that, you know, especially if I'm working throughout the day, because I've been working at home nearly every day for like the last, you know, over 2 years. It just, you know, it's just that kind of sign that the day's nearly kind of done, and yeah, I'm ready to, not quite there, but ready to sort of transition into not working mode. So I really do sort of enjoy that wax changing routine that I have. So cutting wax. I mentioned before that I don't like cutting, and that's why I'm not doing a chop and chat. I actually don't mind just cutting wax, like doing small cuts just to get my warmers ready. So, get my warmers ready. So I don't cut my wax in advance. I did do that for a while. So I'd cut like loaves up, which seems to be what most people do. Most people chop everything up, and then that way it's easy just to reach in and get pieces and go. For me, I prefer to chop as I go. A couple of reasons for that. One, because I find it's easier, for me, I find it easier to store a loaf like this. So just flat, than I would a big chopped bag. So that's part of the motivation. When I had big chopped up loaf bags, I just found that storing them was a bit of a pain. The other reason is because I find it really messy. And I know part of this is my own fault, because I will not microwave my wax. I just, my kitchen is down there. I try to keep all of my wax prep and whatever I'm doing with my wax in this room. I don't know why, I just don't like going into the kitchen to do things with my wax. I just feel like it's extra mess that I have to deal with, or just extra, I don't know. It's probably irrational, but I just have never felt comfortable doing that. And it just feels like extra work. Now, if you're someone who loves chopping wax and likes it when it's all soft, you know, and easy to cut, I'm sure it's like a really soothing routine. But for me, it's just added stress and irritation and just stuff that I don't want to do. So for me, it's just way easier I bring all my warmers down, I chop off what I need, I put it in the warmers, and then I put everything away and it's done. So that's me with cutting. And yeah, so it does mean that for some wax brands, so some of the harder forms of wax, there's certain brands that shatter. So Vintage Chic Scents, for example, The Pharmacist's Daughter, Southbound, Rose Girls, those brands, Super Tarts to an extent, although I find Super Tarts isn't too bad. And they don't really do big loaves anyway to need to cut. But those brands, they probably really should be microwaved. They tend to, especially when they're really thick pieces, they tend to shatter when they cut. And that I don't love, but it's still not enough motivation for me to go and to actually microwave the wax. So, but I do love, a big selling point for me with wax is wax that cuts easily without needing to microwave. So brands like Teddy Bees, Ebony Violet, Savannah Blue's pretty soft, Glitterati. Who else is soft? Dessa's Homespun Scents. So yeah, there's quite a few brands that have like a soft kind of cuttable wax formula, and I really like that because I just love how much easier and cleaner it is to cut that wax. L3 Waxy Wonders, which is a brand that I probably end up cutting the most because I have the most loaves from L3. Obviously their wax is not as soft as like Ebony Violet and things like that, but I don't find it's not hard and shattery like Vintage Chic Scents. So L3s, I don't mind cutting. It can sometimes, I think depending on how it's poured, like some of them I find cut really cleanly. Like I think this loaf here was a really good one. Like I just was able to cut that really smoothly with minimal mess. So like obviously a few flakes and stuff here and there, but not too much. But then some loaves I find it kind of splits up in layers. Seeing if I can find an example. I don't know. Some of them split like in layers, and it's almost like they poured it in layers because it feels like you can almost see like ridges in it as it goes down. So yeah, I feel with L3 they are kind of in the middle. Like they're not that really sort of shattery type that's really messy to cut, but they're also not the super soft type. But I find they're a good compromise. So anyway, so yeah, that's me with cutting and you know, how I feel about it, which is not like super enthusiastic. I have, God, it's so messy. I was going to show it, but hang on. I probably should have cleaned up like my wax peripherals before I started this video, but anyway. So my wax cutter is really messy, but I'll just show you look how messy that is. I think I've spilled a bit of wax on it, but anyway, it's just like a basic sort of soap cutter from eBay. I think I got it from. It was quite cheap, and it does the job. So yeah, and having it messy doesn't ever seem to like transfer wax between things, so it just looks bad. So how much wax in the warmers? So I had a bit of trial and error figuring this out in the early days. I think I figured out the sweet spot for how much wax to put in my warmers, and again this is something that will vary a lot between people, but for me I think it's between about 1/2 ounce and 0.8 of an ounce. That's if I'm somewhere in that zone, that usually seems to be the right amount of wax to put in my warmers. I do find, you know, sometimes, and this is another thing that's a bit subjective, you know, some people will talk about, you know, oh, less is more. Less is more is a really interesting phrase I find in the wax community, because no one ever really defines what less is. Less wax for me in the warmer could mean something very different to less for somebody else. So that's one of those sorts of phrases sometimes I take with a little bit of a grain of salt. Like you have to find how much wax works for you and your warmers, basically. So sometimes, so yeah, pretty much for me, and I did have a little kitchen scale and I weighed it out in the early days, and I found that 0.5 to 0.8 is kind of the sweet zone. The only exception to that really is so Super Tarts with their clamshells, because I only use 1 cube of the clamshell and that does really well. I think that's a bit less than 1/2 ounce. And sometimes other brands, so Southbound for example, I can probably get away with 1 cube most of the time. So if it's a brand that I can do 1 cube of the clamshell, then that is less than 1/2 ounce. But generally speaking, I don't have much other wax that I could use that little. I don't have any or many other vendors that I would find using that little wax actually works. And I have tried. I have tried, particularly with some of the brands that people talk about saying, you know, you only need to use the tiniest amount. I've tried using less than 1/2 ounce with those vendors, and it hasn't done as well. So really just, yeah, that's Super Tarts clams and occasionally Southbound clams. I find I can use less, but everything else. So, you know, I generally these days I'll take like a souffle. I'll usually cut into 8 pieces. That is, to me, they are quite small, so that's probably also slightly under 1/2 ounce. But for a lot of souffles, I actually think probably cutting them into 7 is the right amount, but cutting a souffle into 7 I just find is really awkward, so I don't. I cut them into 8, and it just means sometimes my souffles don't perform quite as well as I would have liked, or they die out a little bit more quickly. I find that with quantity of wax, it's not just about how long it throws for, but it's also how many hours of throw that you get. Because if you don't put enough wax in the warmer, obviously the fragrance oil will burn off, and then you'll have none left. So I understand that filling your wax up to the brim and having a dish this full of wax is probably going to impact your throw. It's probably going to, because you've got the heats down here and you've got all of this liquid, right? So you obviously don't want to be doing that. But on the flip side, if you literally just have the tiniest layer across the bottom of your warmer, there's only so much fragrance oil there, and it's going to disappear, and you're not going to get throw for as long. And for me, because I only change twice a day, I want to get up to 8 hours. And most of my wax I can get, it might not be as strong as when I put it in, but most of my wax will throw for sort of 7 to 8 hours. So that works well for me. So in terms of my warmers and how much I put in them, I get that good balance of throw and the longevity that I'm looking for. But yeah, I don't think that, like, my dishes are probably like maybe that full with what I put in them. So it's not like a tiny, barely there layer on top. There is a pool, but it's not like a really thick pool that the wax would struggle to throw through. So that's kind of how much wax I found. Again, it's one of those things I think you have to do trial and error. Just because somebody says less is more, that doesn't necessarily mean that cutting the tiniest of slivers and putting that in your warmer is going to be a good idea. You'll have to play around with it and find what works for you. Some brands, so Rose Girls in particular, for example, that's a brand that I've found I need to put more in my warmers in. And I hear a lot of people say less is more, but I've tried using sort of Super Tarts quantities of Rose Girls in my warmers, and the throw is really poor and it dies off really quickly. Not for every scent, but for some scents. So, I was sort of taking people's advice and sort of trying to use less, and I was quite disappointed with how my Rose Girls was performing. And then I sort of went, I'm just going to start chucking in 2 mini melters. And all of a sudden, most of my Rose Girls issues sort of resolved themselves. Not everything, but quite a few of them. So I was kind of shooting myself in the foot trying to use less wax, when for my warmers, I need a little bit more, and that's okay. Other things on my list. So cure time. So I don't really sweat or think about cure time too much. I do have a bit of an advantage, I suppose you could call it, with, I don't know if it's an advantage really, but because I forward my wax here. So I'm in Australia. I buy wax from the United States. Most vendors don't ship to Australia, so I send it to a mail forwarder. I use Shipper2 for the record, and they're good, they are fine. So I send it to their warehouse in LA, and then once a month usually, once I've had a few orders build up, I will request that they ship the whole thing out, and it comes in one big box. So a lot of my wax gets cure time in that process, because it adds anywhere from 1 to 6, 7 weeks from when the vendor ships it to when I receive it. So yeah, I find that a lot of the time my wax when it arrives is probably good to melt. It's probably gotten the minimum cure time in transit. But that said, I don't usually, sometimes I do melt things straight away, but a lot of the time I don't. Often because I've just got so much wax here, I'm just not ready to reach for it yet. But I do find that a bit of extra cure time helps most of my brands, particularly if they are more solid wax. I find just kind of needs a bit more cure. So L3 I do find is better after sort of 6 weeks. Like, I've had, not for everything, but I just have had certain scents that have arrived. I've put them on, they haven't thrown. I've left it for another month. I've come back, it comes good. Super Tarts generally I don't find needs much cure time, but sometimes it benefits from it. Rose Girls usually needs a little bit more, I find. So I just, as a general rule, I probably wait a couple of weeks from when stuff arrives, and then factoring in the cure time it's already had, I think most things probably get a minimum of sort of 6 weeks before I start melting it. Some brands I do think need more. Sometimes Vintage Chic Scents, I know a lot of people say this, sometimes I do think it needs longer. You know, I don't sort of time things and go, I'm waiting until 6 months to melt this. I just, when I'm going through my wax, I'll sort of keep an eye on it to pick my box for the week. I'll sort of check the dates, and if it feels like it's too soon, then I'll leave it a little bit longer. So I'm not like you know, a stickler about cure time, but just generally speaking, I do let things cure for a little while. Scoopable wax. So I do like scoopable wax. I know not everybody does. I prefer using scoops to cutting wax. Like, that's just me. I prefer, if I could, like, clamshells are honestly one of my favorite shapes because of how convenient they are to store and just snap a piece and go. I would probably prefer most of my wax to be in little pieces that I can just throw into a warmer and go. Like, that's just, yeah. But I think that the caveat to that is that they all need to be good sized pieces for my warmers. So, for example, Super Tarts has band bags and clamshells, but I much prefer a clamshell because I find that for Super Tarts, a really consistent amount of wax is what I like, so always 1 cube. And with the mini melters, some of them are slightly bigger than a wax cube and some of them are slightly smaller. They're bigger or they're smaller. And I don't like just throwing that in. If they're smaller, then they actually usually don't perform. So I tend to need to put a little bit extra in. But I don't like putting big mini melter pieces in because I just feel like that's too much wax. So for Super Tarts. So I find with, like, I keep calling mini melters, they're band bag pieces. Mini melters are rose girls. So I find that I cut the band bag pieces. I do this. I don't do this with mini melters, actually. I just put 2 mini melters in. But I cut the band bag pieces to be the size of clamshell cubes. But I find that a bit irritating. Like, it's just, I would rather just throw in a piece. And the same with Teddy Bees, their chunk bags, because they used to have big chunks, little chunks all over the place. I found that the lack of uniformity in the sizes was irritating, because I found it really hard to cut the right size piece of wax for my warmers. Because again, Teddy Bees, I sort of know how much I need to put in my warmers. And yeah, it just varied with every chunk. So I much prefer like souffles or loaves or the new tubs that she has, because those I find are really easy to cut into uniform sized pieces. But yeah, like things like these, I don't love the bags that they come in, but these doggy bags from L3 with the vast majority of these pieces are one and done. Like, 1 piece in the warmer works perfectly. That I really enjoy because I just throw them in and they're good to go. Well, I was actually meant to talk about scoopable wax, but I just started ranting about wax shapes again. So I know a lot of people find scoopable wax messy. For me, it's really not that much of an issue. I think part of the reason is because I do that hot dumping of wax. So I tip the wax. I know some people don't like the phrase hot dumping, by the way, but it's just, I don't know, easier to say than pouring my wax hot into a container. So anyway, so yeah, because I do that and I tip the hot wax out, I don't have like issues, because I know you freezing scoopable wax, for example, you can't, like it doesn't freeze solid. So, but to tip it out, it's exactly the same as if it was hard wax. Like, all wax is the same when it's melted down. So that I don't find cleanup any more difficult with scoopable. Depending on the formula, it can be a little bit messier to put in your warmers. So I have tried some quite sticky formulas. So I think that Smell Good shop I found was a bit sticky and tricky to work with. But the 2 main brands I melt scoopable wax from are L3 Waxy Wonders and Scoopable Tart Wax. And those ones I generally don't find sticky. So, and I have found as well with scoopable wax that the spoon that you use is quite important. So as much as they are gorgeous and I like having them, I don't use the spoonchillers that L3 sends. So here's a spoonchiller. I find that these, digging into the, I'm kicking the thing. I find digging into the wax with these, I might demo that just for something to, you know, have, yeah, I find that to get and maybe it's just my technique, but I find you kind of have to dig around and cut like in small parts, and it does, yeah, I just don't find it's got great leverage, and I just don't love using these spoons in here. So what I use is this spoon from IKEA. So this, and I feel like IKEA sells the same stuff everywhere, so I'm sure they sell these worldwide. It's just the kids' cutlery. So this is from my son's old cutlery set. So when he was, you know, a toddler. And they're just fantastic. So I started using these back when L3 was sending out the plastic spoonchillers, because I used to snap those like mad. I didn't find they dug very well, but I kept snapping them. So this has, it's nice. It's got a really thick kind of handle. There's no chance that you would snap this. Like, it will not snap in wax. And it's just, I don't know, it's just got a really good curve to it. So I just find digging, you can almost do like an ice cream style kind of scoop roll. Like it cuts through the wax like butter compared to those, compared to the spoon chiller things. So we use the spoon chillers for like other things. Or, you know, I have a few. I probably could start saying don't send the spoon chillers, but, you know, often I'm ordering from L3 at 3 a.m. in a quick moving ready to ship, so I don't really have the time or the brain power to request her not send me things. But yeah, I don't use them, but I love this spoon. This spoon has just been my trusty Scoopable favorite. So if you are having issues with Scoopables, consider trying a different spoon and consider trying something like this, because I don't know, I just find it works really well. What else did I have on my list to talk about? Storing my wax. I mean, I've been talking for 47 minutes, so I should probably wrap this up. But just quickly, so I have, so here you can see I've got like an IKEA Calyx unit and big canvas tubs. Pretty much all my wax is stored in there by vendor. So they are getting quite full. I do need to, so you can see here, this one is like almost full to the top. So it does mean I have to go digging a bit, because, you know, they're tall, and I would probably prefer to have long kind of flat tubs so that I don't have everything sitting on top of each other. But too much reorganizing of this room. I just can't do it right now. The only thing I do have that's in a tub like that is I have a big flat underbed kind of plastic tub for my clamshells for Super Tarts, because they sit really nicely in that. But every other brand sits in a canvas tub like this. So I've got 8 here. Oh no, sorry, and I do have big drawer type things. I'm not doing a whole tour of my wax, but because this room is way too messy right now, but I'm showing a little bit. So that was my spare clams drawer. I have one big tub for clams, and then I have spare clams, like backups. So pretty much 8 of these canvas tubs here. I've got 3 of those drawers over there. So in those drawers, one drawer has my L3 Scoopables, one drawer has my Super Tarts backup clams, and then the top drawer has a big mix of vendors. It's got Glitterati, K, Empire Alchemy, like lots of vendors I only have small amounts of. Yeah, K, Empire Alchemy, Glitterati, and that's Smell Good Shop, I think, as well. So that's there. Then here I have, so I have 3 drawers of L3 hard wax. So 1, 2, 3. One's got fruity, one's got earthy, clean, masculine stuff, and one's got bakery. And then at the end of the top row, I've got Rose Girls and Scoopable Tart Wax. Then down here, so I've got another mixed vendor drawer down here that's got Savannah Blue, Pharmacist Daughter, so it's another mixer box. Pharmacist Daughter, British Creepy Treasures, Jess's Homespun Scents. Then I've got 2 drawers for Teddy Bees down here. Down there in the bottom, I've got Super Tarts non-clams, so band bags mostly, but there's a few other shapes and shot cups and things like that. The dog again. Sorry about that. And then I have over there, I have my Super Tarts big flat drawer. I have another canvas tub for Ebony Violet, a canvas tub with Tea Time Tarts and Savannah Blue, a canvas tub with pumpkin parcel, so my Australian brand that I love, and then a mixed drawer with, I think, some like an Australian brand maple and wattle. It's got some rainbow melts, lunar wax, and a few other bits and pieces. And then over there as well, I keep 2 boxes like this. So 2 like this. So this is my everything that I've melted so far this week. I don't know why it's sitting at my feet, but so once I melt stuff for the week, I put it in here. The other one is my wax picks. So basically over there, I've got this little system where I pull my stuff out of my wax picks box, put them in the warmers over here, and then they go into this tub ready for my melts and empties video at the end of the week. So nice little system I've got going. I quite like it. I might just talk briefly about picking my wax before I call it, because this is 50 minutes. I had no idea how long this video was going to take. I just knew I just wanted to talk about some stuff. So how I do my wax picks, again, this is another one of these like little routines that I just really enjoy. I feel like I got really attached to a lot of my routines during COVID, like when everything kind of went crazy, and everything changed and was different, and we were locked down and we were this and that. I found just my daily, having, you know, a weekly wax pick routine, and then my daily change routines, I don't know, it just helped keep me a bit grounded. So picking my wax, I generally do it on a Thursday night. I like that because it just, you know, again, it's like an end of week, weekends are nearly here kind of thing. I go through, and most of the time I just start at one end of my collection and I keep working, and I just start pulling stuff out that I feel like I want to melt. I start putting it into piles. So again, because I know that I melt, so it's a bit of, I've sort of got figured out in my wax, in my mind, how much I need to pull, because I know that I have 8 warmers to do and I need to fill them twice a day. And I'm generally speaking, I forgot to mention this, I usually melt 4 scents at a time. So I usually have 1 scent in my lounge room warmers, so that's 3 warmers, 1 scent in my kitchen warmers, so 2 warmers there. I usually do the same scent in my bedrooms. Not always, sometimes I will do different scents in there, but generally speaking, I'll put the same scent in there, and then 1 scent in my office. So fingers. So yeah, 4 scents, because I like just having complementary but different scents around the house. That's just how I like to do things. I don't like having 1 scent in every room. So I will, as I'm picking, I will literally have piles of 4 scents that I will do together in the morning and the afternoon of every day. It's not like I record down what days I'm going to do them, and I often mix them up as I'm going, because I literally just pull out of the box what feels good. But I just find that having done that work of picking 4 scents that could go together, so like maybe 4 coffee scents or 4 sort of berry bakery or things like that, when I put that in the box, I don't know, it just means that if I can't decide exactly what to melt, I know I have a set of 4 different things I could pull and they will work. Other kind of rules for my wax picking, I generally speaking only melt, well, not generally speaking, I only melt bakery and coffee in the mornings. And to be honest, I'm not melting much coffee at the moment either. I just bake, like I just can't deal with melting other things in the morning. I want bakery. But that means I don't generally melt bakery in the afternoons. I could, because I like bakery a lot. Sometimes I occasionally just go, screw it, I'm just going to melt some bakery this afternoon. I really want it. But because I have so much non-bakery, I feel like because all mornings of the week are dedicated to bakery, that I should melt something else. So fresh, clean, earthy, fruity, all of those things are on the table for the afternoon depending on how I'm feeling, but the morning is pretty much exclusively bakery. More kind of fruity bakery in summer, and then I'll melt the heavier kind of scents in the winter. So all of those things, so that's kind of why I don't really do like collabs and things like that, because I just have all of these little personal rules and like, not rules, they're not hard and fast, but just strong preferences for what I want to melt and how I want to melt when I'm picking my box, that putting extra like restrictions around that, I just feel like picking my wax gets too hard and it becomes a chore and stuff like that. So I just like picking the things that I will want to melt, sort of sticking to those you know, preferences around what I want in the morning and the afternoon. I melt very much to the weather as well. So I wouldn't say I'm exclusively a seasonal melter. Like if it was a nice warm sunny day in in winter, I'll happily melt like a spring or floral or something like that. And likewise, if it's kind of cool, cloudy, overcast in spring or summer, I'll melt something to that weather. So I'll usually, when I'm picking my box, I'll usually sort of have a bit of a scroll of what the weather's going to look like for the week, and if it's going to be, and I'll pick based on what's coming up. So yeah, that's it. And it's a bit of a thing. It probably takes me about maybe half an hour, sometimes less, sometimes more, to get my box ready on Thursdays. And then once I've picked it, I film it, and then I forget to put my welting box up. I didn't actually film it last week because I had other videos to film. So yeah, but as a general rule, I like filming it because it means, I don't know, I feel like I process better in my head what wax I picked, and I remember it better when I don't film my box. Even if I'm not putting it up, if I don't sort of do that process of going through and talking about it, I tend to forget what's in there and get a little bit jumbled because it's a lot of wax. I also pick a little bit extra every week. So if I'm going to be melting 7 days for the week, like this week, I will pick 8 days worth. And I just do that so I've got options if I just don't feel, particularly at the end of the week, if I'm just not feeling what's there, it means I've got choices. Or if I want to substitute, if something's not doing well, I can sub it out for something else. It just means I've got a little bit of extra wax in there without having to go back to the whole stash and choose. So I definitely don't want this video to go over an hour. I've probably yammered on for way too long as it is. So I will leave it there. I think I've covered off everything I wanted to talk about. So hopefully that was interesting. I don't know if it will be, won't be, whether it's helpful or not. I don't know. But I think it's just going to make me feel a little bit better about, you know, forgetting to talk about my warmers and where I'm melting and the performance and stuff like that, because at least I know I've put that information out there, and if you want to know more about it, you can watch this video, and if you don't care, then you don't have to. So yeah, I hope you're all doing really well, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye.